In the mid-autumn of 1888, the story begins. Alfred Nobel sits alone in his grand Paris mansion. He picks up the morning newspaper. His eyes scan the headlines. Then he freezes. The words jump out at him. Le marchand de la mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. He reads the sentence again. It is a mistake. The paper has confused him with his brother Ludwig, who had just died. But the rest of the obituary chills him to the bone. It reads like real condemnation. He became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster. The article is brutal. Inventor of dynamite, profiting from destruction and war. Alfred had always seen his inventions differently. He believed dynamite would help build tunnels, canals, railways, a tool for progress, not only battlefields. He'd spent his life creating, not destroying. Yet here it is, in black and white. This is how the world sees him. The words sting more than any chemical burn he suffered in his lab. He is the merchant of death. The thought echoes in his silent, empty rooms. This shocking mistake becomes a turning point. Alfred Nobel is a private, lonely, melancholic man. A poet, a linguist, a brilliant scientist, holder of 355 patents, builder of a global business empire, among the wealthiest men of his time. But none of that matters as he reads his premature death notice. He faces a terrifying question. Is this all he'll be remembered for? A creator of powerful explosives? A purveyor of military technology? He cannot accept that fate. The erroneous obituary plants a seed, an idea to change his legacy. He realizes he can let history judge him, or he can reshape his story after he's gone. He decides his life's work will not end in explosions and conflict. Instead, it will celebrate the very best of human achievement. The Nobel Prize idea is born from the sting of a false obituary. Well, that was the beginning of everything. To understand the man who created the world's most famous prize, we must go back to the beginning. Alfred Nobel was born in Stockholm, Sweden, in 1833. He was a child of contrasts from the start. His family was descended from a famous Swedish scientist, Olof Rudbeck. His father, Emanuel Nobel, was an inventor and engineer who faced constant financial struggles. Emanuel's business went bankrupt the same year Alfred was born. The family lived in poverty during Alfred's early years. He was a frail and often sick child, but he possessed a sharp and curious mind. He found refuge in books and learning, a habit that would stay with him for his entire life. When Alfred was a boy, his father moved to St. Petersburg, Russia, to start a new business. Emanuel found success making naval mines for the Russian government. The family's fortunes changed dramatically. They moved from poverty in Stockholm to luxury in Russia. Alfred and his brothers received a first-class education from private tutors. He never attended a formal school or university. Instead, he learned directly from brilliant teachers. He quickly showed a remarkable talent for chemistry. Swedish, Russian, French, English, German. This international upbringing shaped him into a true citizen of the world. His father wanted him to follow in his footsteps as an engineer. He sent a teenage Alfred on a tour of Europe and the United States to study chemical engineering. It was during a stay in Paris that Alfred met a key figure. He worked in the private laboratory of Professor T.J. Pelouse. There, he encountered Ascanio Sobrero, an Italian chemist. Sobrero had recently invented a highly explosive liquid called nitroglycerin. It was powerful, but also incredibly unstable and dangerous. It would explode without warning. Most scientists, including Sobrero himself, thought it was too unpredictable to be of any practical use. Alfred Nobel saw things differently. He was fascinated by the immense power locked inside this dangerous liquid. He saw not just a risk, but an opportunity. If he could find a way to control nitroglycerin, to make it safe to handle and transport. He could change the world. This challenge would consume him for the next decade. It would lead to terrible family tragedies. It would lead to incredible scientific breakthroughs. It would lead to the creation of a global business empire. It was the start of a journey that would make him famous as an inventor of destructive forces. But it was also the journey that ultimately led him to create a lasting symbol of peace and progress. Upon returning to St. Petersburg, Alfred Nobel was filled with a singular purpose: to master nitroglycerin. He began his experiments in a small corner of his father's factory. The work was incredibly dangerous. Nitroglycerin was notoriously fickle, and Alfred had to learn its deadly temperament through trial and error. He methodically tested different ways to trigger a controlled explosion. He tried mixing it with black powder and heating it, but the results were inconsistent and often catastrophic. The Crimean War had been good for the Nobel family business, with military contracts keeping the factory busy. However, when the war ended in 1856, the orders dried up. Emmanuel Nobel's company once again faced financial ruin. He was forced into his second bankruptcy in 1859. The family's Russian fortune vanished. Emmanuel, his wife, and youngest son Emil returned to Sweden. Alfred, however, stayed behind for a few years with his older brothers, Ludwig and Robert, who were determined to rebuild their own businesses in Russia. Alfred continued his perilous research, now with even greater urgency, believing a controllable explosive could be the key to restoring his family's wealth and reputation. In 1863, Alfred rejoined his family in Hellenborg, on the outskirts of Stockholm. He set up a small shed on the property to serve as his laboratory, and persuaded his father and younger brother, Emil, to join him in his nitroglycerin experiments. He finally had a breakthrough. He discovered that he could reliably detonate the liquid nitroglycerin by using a smaller, contained charge of black powder, which was ignited by a fuse. This invention, which he called a blasting cap or detonator, was a monumental step forward. It meant that for the first time, the immense power of nitroglycerin could be unleashed on command, making it a viable, if still hazardous, industrial tool. The success, however, came at an unimaginable price. On September 3rd, 1864, a catastrophic explosion destroyed the small factory at Hellenborg. The blast was devastating, leveling the building and killing 5 people. Among the dead was Alfred's beloved younger brother, Emil, who was just 20 years old. The tragedy shattered the Nobel family. His father, Emmanuel, suffered a stroke shortly after and was left paralyzed, never fully recovering from the grief and shock. The Stockholm authorities were horrified and immediately banned any further experiments with nitroglycerin within the city limits. Alfred was heartbroken, but his resolve was unshaken. He would not let Emil's death be in vain. Forced out of Stockholm, Alfred Nobel refused to give up. He was a man possessed by his mission. He needed a new, isolated place to continue his work, far from populated areas where he could endanger no one. He found the perfect solution: a sturdy barge anchored in the middle of Lake Mälaren, a large lake near Stockholm. This floating laboratory became his new headquarters. Shielded from the public and the authorities, he continued his relentless experiments. He was determined to solve the final, crucial problem: how to make the volatile liquid nitroglycerin stable enough to transport and handle safely without diminishing its explosive power. This was the holy grail of his quest. He tried mixing nitroglycerin with all sorts of substances. He experimented with charcoal, sawdust, brick dust, hoping to find an absorbent material that would act as a stabilizer. The process was painstaking and repetitive, requiring immense patience and a meticulous attention to detail. He needed a material that would soak up the liquid like a sponge, turning it into a paste or solid form that was less sensitive to shock and friction. The breakthrough came, as it often does in science, somewhat by accident. Alfred noticed that the leaky cans of liquid nitroglycerin he was transporting were being packed in crates filled with a fine, porous, silica-based soil called kieselguhr, or diatomaceous earth. This soil was incredibly absorbent. He observed that even when a can had leaked, the kieselguhr soaked up the nitroglycerin completely, creating a thick, putty-like paste. Intrigued, he began to experiment with this specific mixture. He found that the kieselguhr could absorb up to 3 times its own weight in nitroglycerin, creating a stable, dough-like material that was remarkably insensitive to shock. He had found his solution. The paste could be kneaded and shaped into rods, which could then be easily inserted into drilling holes. It was powerful, yet safe to handle. He named his new invention dynamite, from the ancient Greek word dunamis, meaning power. In 1867, he secured patents for this revolutionary material in Great Britain and the United States. Dynamite was not just a new explosive, it was a complete system. It combined the stable nitroglycerin paste with his reliable blasting cap detonator. It was the key that unlocked the constructive power of nitroglycerin, a tool that would quite literally move mountains and change the face of the earth. With the invention of dynamite, Alfred Nobel transformed from a determined inventor into a savvy and relentless businessman. He understood that his invention was worthless if it stayed in the laboratory. He had to convince the world of its value and, more importantly, its safety. He became his own best salesman and marketing agent. To overcome the widespread fear associated with nitroglycerin, he conducted dramatic public demonstrations for engineers, for miners, and for government officials. He would set a stick of dynamite on fire, showing that it would simply burn without exploding. He would throw it from a height to prove its stability. Then, he would insert a blasting cap and detonate it, unleashing its awesome power in a controlled blast. His strategy worked. The construction and mining industries quickly realized the immense potential of dynamite. It could do the work of dozens of men in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost. Tunnels for railways could be blasted through mountains. Harbors could be deepened. Canals could be dug with unprecedented speed. Alfred began setting up factories all across Europe to meet the soaring demand. His first major foreign factory was established in Krümmel, Germany, in 1865, even before dynamite was perfected. France, Britain, Spain, Switzerland, and beyond. He was building a truly international business empire. Alfred was a unique kind of industrialist. He did not stay in one place to manage his growing enterprise. Instead, he was constantly on the move, a man who lived out of suitcases and hotel rooms. He traveled tirelessly by train and by ship, overseeing his network of factories, negotiating with governments, and setting up new companies. He was often called, well, Europe's richest vagabond. By the 1880s, Alfred Nobel presided over a vast industrial conglomerate. He held patents on his inventions in every major industrial nation and operated more than 90 factories and businesses in over 20 countries. His companies produced not just dynamite, but other explosives, chemicals, and armaments. He had become one of the wealthiest men in the world. His name was synonymous with explosive power and industrial might. Yet this success brought him little personal joy. He remained a solitary figure, a man more comfortable in his laboratory or with his books than in the boardrooms of the empire he had built. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.